January 4th, 2022 Village Board meeting to order. Allison, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We do have one board member that is on the bridge line that is remote. Are there any objections to that board member being on the line?
Depends on how he votes.
No objection. No objection. Any objection?
No.
Okay. Roll call, Allison.
Trustee Bonnie?
Here.
Trustee Lundy?
Here.
Trustee Shomas?
Here.
Trustee Walter?
Here.
Trustee White?
Here.
Trustee Herron?
Here.
Perfect. We have a quorum. Thank you all. We have under public hearing this evening, we have the Settlers Ridge Annexation Agreement. Walter?
I guess we'll just entertain any comments from the public.
Oh, I have to, well, that's true, I'm sorry. I'd like to open the public hearing for comments. I wanted you to introduce it and then I'd open it, but we'll open it for public comment on the annexation agreement. We do have one resident, Mr. Wolf, do you have any comments on the Settlers Ridge Annexation Agreement?
No.
Thank you. We have no other public in the room, so we can close the public hearing on the annexation. Okay, we have nothing under appointments and presentations. Next up is our airport report. Mr. Wolf?
Seeing as you're going to, the JA wants support, I thought I'd give you a little background on involvement with them and history with them and what's been going on. Well, 5 or 6 months ago, I had a meeting with J.R. I think it was Scott, and he said they had 150 pilots in training, and in a year and a half they wanted to bring in a double, 300, which I thought was a lot of people. So I haven't heard anything since then, but that was their goal, I guess, 6 months ago or so. They wanted to go to start. I got it. I'm trying to go there. They wanted to have a commuter system to Springfield, and in the past, there was a lot of Wabansi would send over down a van full a few times a year, 6 to 10 people, and for conferences and things like that, and you had the business community and also the elected officials. But since the virus has hit, everybody's pulled back. There's not the travel that's going on now to really make that viable at this time. I'm not saying you can't have a commuter service, and you probably can, but it's not going to be a weekly thing or something like that, because people have learned they can communicate with what do you call it, over the internet and things like that, and you can have conferences over the internet, and you don't need to always be there, whether whatever. So that can be possible, but it's going to take a lot of timing, and it's going to be a slow process to do that, because as long as this virus going, you know, from what I hear, people aren't traveling, and you know, just start up in the next year or two probably won't happen. But it is a possibility for them to make some profit. The other thing I would suggest and look into is the charter service. Now, there's a big demand throughout the country of charter services. Whether it's a half a dozen people who want to go up to northern Michigan for a fishing trip, or a plane load of people want to go down to Nashville for a concert. People do that type of thing. But you have to look at the numbers and math. And it's going to be a pleasant type of thing where people enjoy the trip. It can't be a bare bones type of thing. So I think in order to do that, Sugar Grove has to relax some of their agreements with Aurora as far as number of people on the plane, and type of whether or not beverages and food could be served on the plane, on the flights, because when you're traveling, you know, you want to enjoy yourself, whether it's a fishing trip or maybe you want a beer or coffee. I don't know. I've never been to northern Michigan, so I don't know. But it's got to be a professional business where people want to come. So you got to do a lot of marketing. You got to do a lot of salesmanship. But we can help by changing the rules to allow whatever number of passengers are required to make it profitable. Now we got limits on, I think, the number of people that can travel on a plane. And we have some things about food services and things like that in our agreement. Now, I haven't read it in years, so I'm just saying what I believe as some things that have hindered it. A lot of these things were done when the airport opened because Sugar Grove residents didn't want Aurora to become an O'Hare. But Sugar Grove is never going to be O'Hare or even DuPage. It's going to be something where you can have some charter, commercial flights, and things like that. Probably not even daily flights, but you can have that. That's possible to have. But we have to relax the rules to make it possible, and it's not going to increase dramatically the number of flights or the number of people that come to the airport. Aurora doesn't have the type of taxing body that DuPage. DuPage Airport is a airport authority. They have authority that runs it, and they have a countywide tax to fund the airport. Aurora is never going to have that. It's going to be always cash poor, although it possibly could make a profit, but it'll never be really profitable. You know, that's what I mean. And that I see in the next 20 years. In doing, relaxing that, I would then say, and I'm just speaking that I'm not sure what the language is about the numbers and things like that. But if that's a problem, and I think it is, I think we traded off for, say, 50 cents a head on passengers that want to commute, or maybe quarter. Now, it's not going to And I'm saying that not to, it's not gonna bring us much money. But it'll give you some skin in the game, which you want, because it's an airport that's located in Chicago. And if you have some skin in the game, even if it's a quarter or 50 cents a passenger, you got a voice. So the other thing I would do is, and I know you looked into this before and you said no, I would look into whether it's not economically feasible, if they do these types of things, whether it's economically feasible to annex some airport land where maybe the offices would be where the people would gather for their flights and you know, whatever, have some coffee or something, whatever. These are things that over the years that have been discussed and come up. So I'm throwing this out maybe as some ideas that you can look at before the meeting with JR. But probably 6 months ago, Brev asked for a meeting with JR to buy him out, and JR never attended the meeting. So and Steve told me that they were not interested, so they didn't even attend the meeting. But about 3 years ago, Jim Armbruster and I, and, you know, Jim Armbruster was the owner of ATMI, had a private meeting with the owner of JA Air. He's the one that started it, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago, whatever. And we had Jim and I and Jim had a private meeting, and Jim trying to figure out how the airport could grow. And he pretty much came across as hands-off and not very much of anything to how they're going to grow. And that was 2 years ago. It's Jim's and mine and a few others that JR probably, when they developed their business idea of coming to Aurora, they didn't plan it well. It was not planned out well financially. And they haven't been able to deal with change their business practices to reflect the current economic situation. So I think there's some ways we can help. I said a couple of them, you know, and I think they would be helpful. But they're a business, and a business has to be realistic of what they can do. So, thank you. Is there any questions?
No, just to let the board know that we do have a meeting with Steve, though, not JA Air. I believe our meeting is with Steve at the airport next week. Frank, myself, and Joe. Just to get a reintroduce. So we'll talk about some of these things and see if there's any opportunities at the airport. But that meeting is next week. I know Frank got that email, the updated time. Okay. Thank you, Joe. To be continued next week. All right. And Joe,
Real quick,
I'm sorry.
you were talking about there could be some arrangements or agreements between the airport and the village regarding what can and can't be served on the planes, the number of passengers on
on the plane.
I thought that's dictated by the FAA, not so much.
There's something, and I know way back, before your time, was it Scott or?
So we have an intergovernmental.
They wanted to bring a food truck onto the airport. And they took, Scott said, no, you can't have food on the airport. You can't have a food truck on the airport. So, yeah, that was 15 years ago. I don't know the language, that's why I'm asking to look at the language, because if there is language that limits that type of thing, then it should be changed. So, without looking at the language. But I know he would not allow a food truck to come to and serve the airport. So, you know, and I thought that was idiotic, but, you know, I wasn't going to argue about it, that if that was the rule, then, so that's all I know. So that's why I'm saying we need to look at what's in the language and define what can and can't be done.
I'd like to look it over just to know what it is,
Okay.
what the rules of engagement are, and see what we're limited with.
Do you have that, Walter? Who has access to where that may be?
Well, I've seen it, so I probably have access to it.
Okay. Can you disperse that to the board?
Sure.
If someone can locate that. Brent, did you hear that? The board, trustee Shomas would like to look at the agreement that with the village and the airport.
Yeah, Joe is correct. There is language in there that limits the number of passenger capacity on flights. I don't recall if there was any limits regarding like food and beverage service or anything like that. But yeah, it's we call it the quote Aurora Agreement. It's easy enough to locate, email the board.
Okay, thank you.
Is the agreement regarding food that they can't have a food type of business at the airport? Is that more the language than whether you can have food on an airplane?
Yeah, there is, I believe there is language that restricts them to airport-related businesses, and I think our interpretation over the years has been like a general restaurant would not really be airport-related business. I think at least from the village's viewpoint, we've always looked at it as have to be more, limited to airport. If it's open to the general public, it's hard to say it's, is that really an airport business? Not that we wouldn't want to see one there. It just has provisions as far as what they can do in unincorporated property versus incorporated. I think some of that does allow them to do some of those things, but they would have to annex it to the village.
There's something to look at.
Yeah, because if you're going to have, say, a flight of 100 people, you're going to have food and beverages on it. And it might take
We're
some
not
type
going to
of,
have a flight of 100 people.
it may take some type of kitchen there to prepare it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, totally understand, and I get it. You're going to have regional services as well. I mean, they already have private planes with multiple passengers coming and going. We get what you're saying. It needs to be. I don't know when this agreement was drafted, but it probably doesn't hurt to take a look at it. It's been a while.
Walter, I had it, I just sent it to you, so you can send it out.
Oh.
Look at that. Hold it up. It's coming. All right. Thank you very much for
I
that.
don't even want to know why TV would have it.
Well, because it had some other language in it, and I want to know what the updated one was. There was
Oh,
an older
okay.
one
Okay.
that related to what the airport could do, what we could do, and a lot of it related to lights of the fields,
Sure.
dealer, and so it was renewed, and I had asked Brent to send me a copy, so I can get it for some reasons, and then
Okay.
I got it from Allison, and just sent it to Walter to save him some time.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Okay. Let's move on to public comment, which is Joe.
I have no comments.
On any item scheduled for action this evening, you want an agenda?
Yeah, let me just say, on this burning. That is almost impossible to enforce. People, it's more of a, hope you obey the law. If they don't, it's pretty hard to keep track of it. I'm not saying you shouldn't have it, but I don't know how you enforce something like that. So, but I think we should have it. But I don't know that it helps much.
Okay. Well, thank you for that comment. We'll look forward to that. That's a discussion item this evening, but we will get there. So no other comments, Joe, at this time?
No.
Okay. Under consent agenda, we have A, approval of the minutes from the December 21st, 2021 village board meeting. B, approval of the vouchers. C, an ordinance amending the Settlers Ridge annexation agreement. D, approval of the purchase of a plotter scanner. Any requests to remove an item?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions with respect to the plotter scanner. I don't know if it's appropriate to move it to general business.
Okay, we'll just remove that from consent at the moment. Are there any other items that would like to be removed? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda A, B, and C as previously stated?
As stated.
Thank you. And a second out of, first on trustee Shomas and a second out of trustee White. Roll call, please.
Trustee Shomas?
Aye.
Trustee White?
Aye.
Trustee Karen?
Aye.
Trustee Lundy? Aye. Trustee Walter?
Aye.
Trustee Bonner?
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes. Okay, item D, purchase of the plotter scanner. Please, questions?
Given I think the price point we're looking at that thing is $9,200. I'm wondering if that thing needs to go to an open bid, or do we at least have to have 3 quotes on that?
Did you hear the question, Brent, as well? Matt, did you hear the question?
I think
He's questioning that, is that something that we need to get multiple quotes at the price point that it's at, $9,300 or whatever it may be?
no, we do not. The price is $25,000, where we should be competitively bidding.
Okay, thank you. And then it looks like we made the decision, or at least the recommendation, to purchase it instead of leasing it, because if I read it appropriate, we still own it outright at the end of the lease, and there was only like an $85 difference when it was all said and done. So my question is do we get a full maintenance agreement with that during at least, the 2 or 3 years that it will probably need to be serviced?
The maintenance agreement is extra, and it's $95 a month.
So if you lease it, there's no, as part of your lease agreement, there's no maintenance included?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I would really recommend we get.
I'm sorry, who's talking?
Most lease agreements, the maintenance is extra.
Okay. I mean, I guess, I don't have any experience with a plotter scanner, so Heidi, how often do you see them break down?
Constantly.
Depends on how often you use them, but every office I've been at has ended up with a maintenance agreement. And I know one company I worked at, they didn't have a maintenance agreement, and they had to hire someone in and basically had to shoot it. I mean, it was one of those, they had to end up paying for a maintenance agreement that the company had. I mean, they're so complex sometimes, you want to make that agreement.
There's a lot of mechanical moving parts on this.
So did we investigate a maintenance agreement?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe on the purchase Walter has one, that's in the 95.
Oh, right.
I would recommend if we're going to purchase it, get a maintenance agreement.
What's all encompassing in that agreement?
In this particular case, it's all encompassing, all.
Parts and labor?
Parts and labor, and some of the supplies, not all, but some of the supplies.
agreeable to basically a $1,200 additional fee annually for the plotter?
Yeah.
It's unanimous here that you go ahead with a maintenance agreement on the plotter while we have it. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Any other additional questions on that item? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the purchase of the plotter scanner?
As stated.
Thank
With
you.
the maintenance agreement.
With the maintenance agreement, thank you. With the maintenance agreement.
As stated.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. First on a trustee Shomas and a second on a trustee Bonnie. Roll call, please.
Trustee Shomas?
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie?
Aye.
Trustee Lindy? Aye. Trustee Walter?
Aye.
Trustee White?
Aye.
Trustee Heron?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
There you go, Walter.
Thank you.
That man went to work.
That's why he came to the meeting this evening. Okay, no, it's all these other things too, but, under general business this evening, we have item A, it's ordinance amending the special event regulations. I'll actually go to Allison on that one.
So this was discussed at last meeting on the 21st. I did speak with Trustee White today, and he had a few kind of housekeeping changes to this ordinance as well as the mobile one after his review. So those changes are made into the kind of supplemental paperclip copies that you have next year. There wasn't anything substantial that wasn't, the substantial changes were what we discussed last time.
Okay. Do we have any questions or discussion on anything? Jamie, do you want, I know she said they're not substantial, can you give us an example of something without, because we're just seeing it for the first time?
First,
Special event.
special events. That one was pretty straightforward.
Yes.
Like,
We changed H.
Thank you.
I can't remember.
All right, I'm just gonna try to,
Which one? H,
For the definition,
under definitions you changed?
oh, just added it said including farmers markets and food trucks, and I said, but not limited to, because I don't want it to be.
Okay.
so including but not limited.
Yeah,
Okay,
just want it to be a broader definition than what we have. What else?
I think just
That was-
capitalization.
Capitalizations, that was,
but nothing that changed the language basically, other than adding that.
no.
Right, no, nothing.
Okay. Okay,
Oh, we did change the, under 478, it had, B was what, will damage or destroy village property. And that's, beforehand, that's pretty hard to make the determination, so we said will likely damage it in the special event administrator's opinion.
okay,
That way they could look at it and say, okay, well, we think this is not a good idea. We don't have proof of it now, but we at least have a basis for denial.
okay.
No disco demolition.
Right. Which was pretty cool. I think that was it for that one.
Okay. Any additional questions or discussion on this ordinance? Allison, as usual, it's obviously took you a lot of time to work on, but if anything comes up, we can always revisit it, but I think enough changes have been made to move this forward. Okay.
I would just
Go ahead.
stress that comment. I mean, I just want to make sure we're not making something that puts any. I mean, I know we're trying to streamline, make life a little easier. So I kind of see this year as being a bit of let's see how the new process works, and if we run into some roadblocks, we'll modify it again. That's the way I always deal with those things when I'm writing down process documentation at work. Right? It doesn't have to be set permanently. Continuous improvement, as they say.
And this is the first step in that improvement plan. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the ordinance amending the special event regulations?
As stated.
First on trustee Shomas, can I get a second?
Second.
Second on trustee Walter. Roll call, please.
Trustee Shomas?
Aye.
Trustee Walter?
Aye.
Trustee White?
Aye.
Trustee Heron?
Aye.
Trustee Lindy?
Aye.
Trustee Bonnie?
motion passes. Next item, item B, an ordinance amending the mobile vending regulation. Allison?
Again, this is mostly the changes that we had discussed. Did talk with, at the last meeting, did talk with Trustee White again today. Housekeeping, and a lot of capitalization. And then the changes were to clarify an owner-operator, and also, so it's not just the person who applies for the license who can drive the truck, but also if they're an employee, and make sure that we had clarification on when it can happen and what kind of documentation they had. That we also changed the requirement of Illinois driver's license to just a valid driver's license in a couple instances.
Okay.
And then one of the other things that we did was there was a provision that says, except as set forth in this provision, this ordinance, there's no other vending of food. So we said, well, we also have to then tie that into the other ordinance, which is passed, say, except as it's set forth here and in the other.
Okay.
So that we didn't preclude food trucks by
We don't want to do that.
in, in one and the other. And on that one, Allison, I think, and that's under 3-8-2, and where it's highlighted almost at the end there, it says, and in 473. The 473 is the definition section, so I think if we just say that in Title 4, Chapter 7 of this code,
Okay.
then it incorporates the whole special events ordinance.
Okay.
So you adding additional language right this second that I'm missing?
So, yeah, 3-8-2.
2, I'm sorry, okay. Yeah,
You see the blue highlighted at the bottom of it? It says and in 4-7-3.
yes,
So that's a definition section, and we really wanted to make it something that would fall under the special events. So we just reference Title 4, Chapter 7, which is the special events ordinance. It makes it broader, brings the whole ordinance in.
then leave up the 3 with the
Leave out the
definitions. Okay, so
So
4 to
basically,
7.
so it should say here in Title 4, Chapter 7 of this code.
Okay, so that's a change. As of today. Okay, you want to, is that the only change that we're looking to make to that? Jamie, will you formulate that motion for me, please?
Okay, so I will move to approve the ordinance regarding mobile vending with a change to section 3-8-2 and the cross-reference to chapter, Title 4, Chapter 7 would read, well, the last sentence of that would say, except as specifically allowed herein and in Title 4, Chapter 7 of this code, no person shall conduct any other vending, etc. That's my motion.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Shellman. Roll call, please, Allison.
I'm sorry, who was the first?
Jamie.
Trustee White.
Aye.
Trustee Showman.
Aye.
Trustee Bonner.
Aye.
Trustee Karen.
Aye.
Trustee Walter.
Aye.
Trustee Lenny.
Aye. Perfect, motion passes, thank you. Thank you for making that motion too, Jamie. All right, next up we have public comments on items for discussion. Joe already discussed the leaf burning. Joe, would you, on discussion, we also have the chicken permit limit. Do you have any comments on the chickens? Okay, we have no public comments at this time. We'll close that section. Okay, discussion. First item here, item A, increasing the residential chicken permit limit. Walter.
Okay, as most of you probably do not know, we have a residential chicken permit program. It was established back in 2017, and the village board at the time, rather than jump in with both feet, just wanted to dip their toes into the program and place a limit of 8 permits to gauge, how well the program works and if there's any adverse effects, in the neighborhoods where these are located. Well, it's taken us the better part of 4 years to get to that 8th permit. And we issued it a month or so ago. And so, you know, in anticipation.
Who's that?
Yeah,
Aaron? We got a chicken on the line, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Walter. Sorry for that.
Trying to get a jump start on the next season. Want to find out, you know, what the pleasure of the board is. Do we leave it at 8? Do we, you know, remove the limit and just, you know, operate the program as is, or do you set another number? So that's the purpose of the discussion. As I indicated in the board report, you know, the program has a number of requirements. You know, obviously you can't have roosters. There's location requirements and construction requirements for the coop and the pen area, and well, the other thing I wanted to mention is, you know, we really haven't had any problems or issues with the program. The people, or the residents that desire to have chickens, they seem all too happy to comply. You know, they, you know, willingly come in and get the permit. They do what they have to, you know, to get or make sure that the pen and the coop comply with our requirements. And there's no problem with doing the follow-up inspections, you know, the annual inspections. They're very accommodating, and if anybody has a problem with any of the 8 that we have in town, nobody's let us know. So we've got no complaints about any of these.
Okay, excellent. Well, I know this is near and dear to Trustee Heron's heart. So, Sean, do you have any comments or discussion for this item?
Yes, I speak for the chickens. I think for the reasons Walter said, it's something that's growing in popularity. I think it's something that we haven't had an issue with. There are a lot of restrictions in place to make sure that people do this the right way and it doesn't attract wild animals. They don't have issues with noise, with neighbors, or odor, or anything like that. I think it's a good thing to continue to expand, and I think that's it. And that was not me with chickens.
Oh, it wasn't?
The audio.
Oh.
You know, I do have the chicken dance queued up.
Well, thank you.
I have raised chickens.
Okay.
I live in the cow, and I think this is a fabulous program. And I think the regulations that we have in place are awesome, and making sure it doesn't get crazy or something that people might complain about. The chickens help keep insects down and everything like that. And heck, I put chickadee doo-doo on my garden. You know, you buy it, it's compost. It's awesome compost for your garden. So
you're good.
I am good.
Okay.
I say go for the chickens.
One more thing I've got to add. With the number of homeowners associations that we have in the village, in those territories that are covered by an HOA, the HOA, to my knowledge, without exception, they all prohibit chicken raising. So we're talking about a small area of town where this would be permitted.
Okay.
That was going to be my comment. I'm fine with expanding that.
Expanding it, however, I think I still would like to see a number, not just open up to anybody. I think maybe, you know, doubling that 8 to 16, since it took us almost 5 years to get to the 8, and maybe slowly progressing with more and more numbers. I would like to still have somewhat of control over how many people are applying, and that would be my only concern, is just opening it up for everybody.
You read my mind.
Those are my comments.
That was the same exact thing I was thinking. I think if it took us 5 years to get to 8, let's make it 16, same thought. if it's another 5 years and we revisit it, or if we revisit it in 2 because we hit that, but at least there's that revisit process. Okay, is everyone good with that number of 16 then?
Yeah, where are the permits, what subdivisions or area village are people doing this right now?
Well, it's gonna be, here in the old part of town,
Dugan, probably. They don't have an HOA.
right,
Yeah, but
The ones that
that's
are allowed
where
to
the
have a
current,
fence.
I'm sorry, say that again, Sean?
I think it's basically the ones where you're allowed to have a fence. Well, ones you can't, because you can't have a fence. I'm not sure which other ones you cannot have a fence in.
Well,
I think that was,
in our neighborhood, you can't have livestock, and this falls under livestock, so.
yeah.
You might also have that provision as well beyond the fence.
Where are the active permits that we got right now? Do you know, there's 2 of them on the east side and 3 of them on the west side?
boy, you know what, I don't know.
Okay. Because I mean, that's that's what I'm thinking, that those, like the Dugan's Woods areas would be probably the type of lots that I think that most people would envision those things. I'm wondering if we don't have any on the east side currently, those lots are a little smaller, like the same issue with the fire, the leaf burning. There being concerns with those lots being smaller. And what about if ever the village, we start putting on duplexes and that sort of stuff?
Oh, it can only be on a single family lot.
Okay, right now, that's the way it's written?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, my only thought is, do we want to limit it based on lot size? For any reason, I don't know how much was.
You don't
a
need
pen
a lot
would be
of,
for
you do
4
not-
chickens.
You do not need a
Okay.
lot of space
Okay.
for.
And the chickens don't make noise, the hens do. Generally speaking.
The roosters.
The roosters, sorry.
Roosters make noise and they crow all the time, not
Yeah.
just in the morning. So the hens will occasionally make noise because they're not real noisy, especially if you only have 4. If you limited to 4, I had 12. I had 12 chickens, and it was fairly, it wasn't that big of a space anymore. But yeah, they're not that noisy.
We have a police officer, who serves the village, who is a avid, chicken raiser, and, he extols the virtues of it, pretty consistently when I'm sitting on the pension board meetings, to the point where I was like, maybe I should be doing it. I can't, because I wouldn't.
Can't.
Yeah.
So,
I'm thinking of it. That was my only question is, those small lots, do we have any takers of it over there, or is it all just in those areas of the village where the 8 permits currently are on some of the bigger properties, and is that an area where, maybe it is, maybe it isn't?
I think right now you haven't had any complaints from neighbors, right?
Correct.
So,
Correct.
I can't imagine all the chickens are in Dugan. I have to imagine there's some chickens somewhere in the center of town.
Right.
Maybe even Mallard Point, I don't know, but I assume that they don't have an HOA as well.
I'll let you know where we're at.
Okay.
And that's just a simple curiosity.
Yeah, no, but, I get it. My sister lives out in Portland, Oregon, where chickens are prevalent in your yard. And she lives on a 5,000 square foot lot in the city, and they have chickens roaming the yard. I mean, there was, one time I was zooming, they were in the house, so it's unless I know it's crazy. But, anyway, point being is you can live on a small lot and still manage to raise chickens and
I know they do great with the bugs, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Sounds like that we would like this brought back with the provision for 16 permits. For next meeting. Thank
I
you.
will do that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, next up is leaf burning. I guess I'll introduce this. So, we looked at this a year and a half ago and made some changes to it. Memory serves, and staff can correct me. It was based a lot off of Elburn's open burning ordinance at the time. And so obviously it came to light recently about a resident that complained about the smoke from a nearby neighbor that was burning, that she didn't obviously call the police, but I did send all of you photographs, so hopefully you did see them that were sent to me. And my only thought when I saw it was the properties are so close together, so this goes back to what you were saying regarding the chickens, but the properties are so close together, even though in our current ordinance it says you can't burn, I think it's within 20 feet, right, or from your structure. So part of me thought, as I discussed it a little bit today with Jamie, is maybe that person was totally a violator, right? Because the property line is so small that they weren't able to do it 20 feet from the property, nor were they able to accomplish the 20 feet from the property line. And so this really was a discussion to say, is there anything that we need to clean up, or what is the right process? I mean, there's still so many people, and this is, I know staff is online, but there's still so many people, and Chief's not here, that will not call 911 over this issue, because we're just trained that 911 is an emergency, use, even though that's how you get someone to come out if there's a problem. So we have a lot of training to do of the public, but I don't know what anyone else's thoughts are on it. I know that when I saw the photographs that were sent to me, if I were living in the house where this was happening, I would be irritated by it. It's definitely produced a thick smoke close to her home. Like I said, it probably wasn't within the legal parameters of our ordinance, so maybe there's nothing to change within our ordinance. But I did want to bring it back for discussion. And I also pulled the ordinance from Elburn, because one of the things what I found interesting is a lot of areas don't allow burning. I think that people, as we spoke today, Jamie, like that you can still burn in Sugar Grove. But one of the things that I found interesting, and Chief is not here, but in their ordinance under open burning prohibited, they have item 5 that says burning of brush, but only if. I couldn't figure out how this gets policed, so this is really to Trustee Bonnie. I only can burn brush, but only if. Only clean, dry materials are burned. Burning that is offensive or objectionable due to smoke or odor emissions or atmospheric conditions, or when circumstances exist that make such fires hazardous, shall be prohibited. So myself, the way I read this, if it's producing offensive or objectionable smoke, I can complain about it, and you, as a police officer, need to then go tell them to clean that.
Yeah, that's pretty much correct. So I would recommend, 911 can be used. There is a non-emergency number that the public can call to reach the police department and can reach dispatch center. So there is a non-emergency number that maybe the public needs to get pushed out a little bit more to say, hey, if you're not comfortable calling 911, even though this is an okay reason to call 911, the flames could get out of control, it could burn out the fence, there's a lot of issues. Smoke could, get in somebody's, vision when they're driving. There's a lot of reasons why you call, but when you get down to the fact of driving, if we come up to a call of an open fire, it's a little different. We have a no burning in town ordinance for us, so it's a little different. As soon as we go there, it's automatic. Unless it's in a contained fire pit, I think very similar to a 3x3. Otherwise, they receive an ordinance ticket, and the fire department also comes out with us, and they inspect to make sure that it's not violated in their own set of rules, and then they can also issue another ticket as well. So it's, I would say it would be the discretion of the officer that gets there. And typically, if somebody calls and says something's on fire, there's a lot of smoke, there will be a fire department rule as well. So I would imagine Sugar Grove dispatches it as well. At least an engine to go with the police to check on the open flames.
Okay, so the way I read it though is we do not have this objectionable item in our ordinance. And should we? I don't.
I think when we were talking about the noise, I might defer to some of the same comments that I made in that discussion. with respect to the noise is that you need to make it quantifiable and measurable so that it's obviously enforceable by a police officer who arrives on site. And the phrase objectionable is really subjective, right? What's going to be objectionable to one person isn't, to someone else. In the pictures that you sent, there were several things that I found objectionable by that. It looked to be, like what you were saying, like that damn thing is right next to the freaking wood fence. Which you don't know, because, you don't know how hard the wind is blowing. And I think based on the context of those pictures, it was, again, an area of town where the lots are a little smaller. So I think what I would suggest is maybe a consideration of either, increasing that 20 foot to something a little larger so that it's just not feasible that it could be done on those smaller lots, or put a lot size square footage restriction in there. Your property must be X number of acres, square feet, whatever, pick your unit of measurement there. I would also suggest, I think the way that it's, we're at least on the board report, within 20 feet of any building, structure, right of way, or property line, I think the phrase "or any other combustible material" should probably be added to that if it isn't in the ordinance itself, just to make sure that it doesn't jump. So those were kind of the two areas. I say we kick the 20 feet up to maybe 40 or 50.
If you're 40 or 50, you're affect a lot.
You're gonna lie.
Whatever.
You just
I
made
mean,
it, right.
25 or 30, make it a little bit bigger so that we can make it a little more black and white in those sort of areas that were borderline. I think that was probably a borderline case, if not a clear violation of the ordinance. Then that makes it easier for the officers.
I would ask the question of the lots over in the older section of town. I mean, there are smaller lots. Do you know how deep your lot is, Heidi, in your neighborhood?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Because then you can do the math and say, okay, whatever the setback is for the foundation, to figure out if I'm 20 feet, do I have 40 feet in the back of my lot from the house to the property line to even know if that is allowable in your neighborhood?
Once you start getting above the 20 feet, I think you're going to have to start really looking at, you might be eliminating a lot of homes that would be able to do it.
Right.
Because you can't be 20 feet from your property line, you can't be 20 feet from your house. Okay? So.
Well, that's my question, is do we already eliminate that? Do we already eliminate enough
I
homes?
think the 20 feet is probably sufficient, because I was looking at my house, and I was like, okay, we have a fire pit, and I'm like, yes, 20 feet from here, 20 feet from here, 20 feet from here. They're about 20 feet from the back. You usually put it toward the back of your house, and that's where most people would put a fire pit, and then, their neighbor, behind them, so it's all kind of in the back. But I was like, okay, but more than 20 feet, you're going to start eliminating. And I'm not on one of the tiny lots,
Right. So, I'm sorry.
So I have some thoughts. First, some questions, I guess. The two neighborhoods I've lived in here in Sugar Grove, it always been somewhat newer. So the trees aren't mature like in the original part of town, which that's a lot of leaves. If you've got one or two mature trees. So I don't see much burning. The only burning I see is across from 47 and like Merrill. Those folks burn there. Is it prevalent in in subdivisions? I guess
I haven't seen anybody burn, lawn material or anything from in our neighborhood, but I have, obviously we're doing fires, which are in here as well, like fire pit kind of stuff.
So I don't think it's that prevalent. So my few thoughts, of course, I've tossed around the location approximate. How do you police that again? What do you say that 1 acre lots? Because we're talking about in the original part of town here. Those ones, everybody's close. Every neighborhood we have here, everyone's pretty close. So smoke's gonna bother somebody, or there's some risk there, obviously. We only allow contained fires and fire pits, 3 by 3. Well, you see leaf fires, 10 feet by 10 feet or greater. So, I know leaves more smolder, they're like a huge, there's a risk there, right? Obviously, a few. Yeah. So, there's certainly risk there, but I would, I'd be okay with prohibiting it, because this is just, it just seems kind of unnecessary. We pay for the lawn bags, the pickups. Now, I understand the homes that have, I do it all myself, but I understand homes with a lot of leaves. That's a big project. In Rochelle and DeKalb, once our neighborhoods mature more, they have the leaf vacuum service, which you just put it all out at the curbside and it's gone, it's vacuumed up, done. And so there's not an effort to put it into 20 to 60 bags. So there are communities that do that. But I guess I'd be, unless some major reason why not, I kind of just prohibiting that.
So are you prohibiting just burning the leaves?
Burning refuse on your property. We all live pretty close to each other.
I mean, we'll have a branch we're trimming or something, and we'll let it dry out, and we'll cut we'll put it up into firewood, and we burn it in a fire pit.
Oh yeah,
But some of those might have some leaves on it. I don't rake my leaves on any one person.
No, I'm talking about literally the effort is I'm going to burn.
I'm going to keep raking it.
Right, but you got to watch how you say it, because right now it's basically, my one or two branches that fell down, I can't burn it unless I have to cut it into set firewood and everything. If I have some leaves on those branches, I have to break those off.
No, I'm talking
So
major burn.
Because I have my little tiny,
I don't think anybody's trying to prohibit that. I think that
I
the leaves as a whole, when you're burning that.
And I don't burn leaves. Like I said, I'm the one person in the neighborhood who leaves my leaves down or rakes them and mulch them into my but I understand. I understand that it's a big thing for people to burn the leaves, but just watch it if you're eliminating that. I don't eliminate the ability to, have a branch and stick the trimming on. Now I have to.
Yeah, but I would think in that case, you cut it up small enough that it would go in the category of a recreational campfire, If you can fit it in 3 by 3 and put it in your,
We have all these set sizes and everything, and
Yeah.
The main reason we allow it still is based upon cost savings for the residents, because they don't want to pay for the bags.
Likely.
The bag pickup is already included,
Right.
so it would just be the cost savings of just the bags. That's the only reason we count it. So
Because you're still raking the leaves.
everything's still the same. It's just the cost effectiveness of the $4 or $5 or whatever it is for the bag of bags, right? Is it more?
Literally, you can have something with 100 bags.
Oh, there's
some dense trees, a lot of trees right now. And I'd like to see what the chief says about how many complaints do we get every year. Sure. Usually when you're burning your leaves, you're doing it over the course of one day. And I understand that it was a problem for this woman. I don't disagree with that based on the pictures. It looked like somebody just wasn't following the rules, and it impacted her. And I'm sorry that happened, but I don't think we should change it because of that element. When it seems to be working fine otherwise.
Okay. All valid. I want to address one thing because I thought the same thing as Ryan. And so, Brad or Tony, can you comment on the truck, the vacuum that sucks up the leaves? I know Brad had an opinion about that when I brought it up before. If he's still with us.
I'm here.
Okay.
It's a very expensive, high maintenance piece of equipment. And then, like we talked about, you run into the problem where you schedule a route, and this stuff doesn't get out there, then they're going back around, it's very laborsome. And then if you have a late fall like this, then you have trouble getting rid of the leaves because the landfill's closed, the composting facilities.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting us to purchase one of them to take service.
Just out of curiosity, this is maybe Matt, does our garbage pickup offer this kind of service with an additional fee?
I don't know, outside of our own market, but you could do it, I would have to find out.
Okay. Just curious, obviously we're having discussions, so I'm just trying to hear everybody's comments and answer those questions.
And remember that our landscape waste is unlimited pickup as long as it conforms to the requirements of the program, so that we don't require any stickers or any other additional fees to pick up bags of leaves or containers of leaves. So it doesn't cost the resident if they don't want to burn it or they're burning it. So there is no additional cost to the resident to get rid of their yard waste through the normal yard.
They have to buy the message.
Right. Yeah.
30 bags for $10.
Yeah.
Doing the business.
We filled up just in our yard, we have one maple in the back, one of those parkway trees. Those parkway trees are a nuisance, but cleaning all of ours up in a day, I think we had 15 bags, and we don't have a very large lot. So it's to your point, it does.
And it's probably, quite frankly, I know some of the people that live on that lot. There's probably an older person who's thinking, I'm not gonna spend $100 to get rid of these leaves when I can burn it. Because a few bucks makes a difference to them.
No doubt.
There are still people out there that enjoy doing it. It's part of their fall tradition. They like the smell. We are becoming the minority.
Well, and I think the hard part is,
harkens back to memories of when we were young and, that sort of stuff. But, I think there's still some people that do it because they like it regardless. That's just part of the fall, going to pick pumpkins up and stuff like that.
well, I totally understand that sentiment. While what I might like can be a complete nuisance to my immediate neighbor, why is my right better than theirs?
Right. I'm just letting you know where some of the motivations are.
No, I get that.
Some of the people that are doing that.
And I'm not quite sure how I feel about the whole thing in general at the moment. I don't want to take anybody's rights away that are living in Dugan. I know that there's one particular home in Stratford that burns every fall, and that's what they want to do, and they really want that right to be able to do that. But at the same time, you also weigh trying to have a cleaner environment and that kind of thing. And then the flip side of that is we are surrounded by a lot of prairie where we do natural burns. So, I don't know that we can get away from it here, trying to go down that clean route because it happens around us constantly. So I guess,
I think to Jamie's comment, though, the important thing is to really get maybe a read from the chief.
Yeah, 100%.
How much of a burden has it been on the police department, and what can we do as a board to maybe change or update the ordinance that would make their lives easier as far as enforcing it?
Yeah.
I think I would like to hear from the fire department as well.
Okay.
Because I think the fire department sometimes may actually have a little bit more say-so in that area than the police really do. I think they're just there to enforce the rules upon for the fire department, just because they're not really an enforcement agency. So I would like to hear the chief from the fire department to see if he's got any concerns with this, and or if there's any issues that him and his guys have seen over the last couple of years.
Very valid point. Okay, so can we do this? It was obviously brought it up during President report, wanted it on the agenda so that the public knew we were going to discuss it. We discussed it. I'd like to continue, put it on for discussion for the next meeting as well. I don't know what our next agenda looks like. I'm happy to call Chief Perkins and or Brent if you want to reach out to Chief and see if he would be willing to come to our next meeting when this is on for discussion and just weigh in if he has time. That would be appreciated. And then Chief will be back on Sunday, and so he'll be around for our next meeting. think we kind of, but thank you for that. I, you know, these are the things, and I don't know if she sent those to anyone else prior, but, so I forwarded those pictures along. We will revisit it. And I was gonna say there, I didn't highlight it, but I did pull Geneva's ordinance as well, because they allow open fires in a fire pit kind of situation, but the reason I say that is I think they had a nuisance clause in there. I will revisit it and read it again and highlight it next time, but they might have had the same kind of thing that Elmer had, which is like, it's bugging me, and I live next door, they call the police, and that resident then will have to put it out. That's the way I read what Elmer has done, but, okay. We are done burning those leaves. Here we go. So that's it. Thank you guys for the discussion. Next up is staff reports. Tony. Tony Special, staff report. He's already in the restaurant. Brad?
I thought he was trying this.
I don't know what he's doing.
The only thing I have to report is.
Oh, we got him. All right.
Thank goodness.
We had a couple of snow events. The equipment, everything worked as planned. So no problems with the snow event. We've been working on some tree trimming. We started with Windsor Point, and beyond that, I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah. And kudos to one of your staff that replaced an alternator on the street and got a truck working again, which I found fascinating.
A violation of one of our ordinances.
It's not an emergency.
It's the G zoning.
So, sorry. So it's hard when you guys aren't in the same room, I'm sure. It's hard for you too. Yeah. Okay, does anyone have any questions for Tony or Brad?
I wanted to compliment them on keeping the office parking lot nice and clear. Thank you guys.
Yeah, you're very welcome. That's what they
I'm
want to say.
surprised that we have our staff doing it, quite honestly.
Well, it's better. We own it, so are we going to pay somebody to do it?
Take somebody off the streets that's.
Or we can bill our tenants as part of the cost.
That's not part of the lease though, man.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Brad. He says thank you, Brad, for keeping it nice and clear. He appreciates it. Next up, Brent.
I know it came up at the beginning of the meeting, but obviously the village has not been immune from COVID cases. So we are continuing to update based on CDC guidance and take as many precautions as we responsibly can. The only other thing I would add is we do have a interview with the board candidate for EDC director next week.
Excellent. Thank you, and we wish all of our staff speedy recovery who's been affected, and any board members that have been affected with COVID. My next, Matt. I'm sorry, time out. Did anybody have any questions for Brent before we're done? Okay. Sorry, Matt.
As Brent said earlier, I will be back in the office tomorrow as well. I'm back to normal. I'll be masked up and everything, so I will be back in the office and outside of within the staff report with the grant and as well as the pension fund. There's really nothing additional after this time.
Okay, excellent. Can you remind us again what that grant number was for the body cameras?
Yeah, so I know it kept going back and forth, but I believe it's $44,000 they know we're aware that we got awarded to that next phase. And then I'll be sure to get those administrative questions done next week. But I know we did apply for 22 at 2,000, so that's the number that sticks in my mind.
Okay, and I'm sorry, how many people were moved on to the next phase?
They didn't say how many people actually got the grant or moved to the award phase, but over 1,000 people applied.
Okay.
So I can forward the award letter to, or the award email to the board, just kind of, they give a little bit of background that they're very happy with our eagerness to implement the body worn camera system and everything going forward based on our application.
All right, well, thank you for that update. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Matt? No? Thank you, Matt. Walter?
I don't have anything to add to my board report.
That's okay. Does anybody have any questions? We always seem to have questions for Walter.
Walter, I don't know if it's for Walter or who, but what's the status of the Stocklighted Park application?
Stocklighted Park update. Brent's coming back just in time. What is the update there? So I know parts, but I defer to Brent on this. I know it's still an IDOT. I think that last we spoke, it was in Michelle's hands to respond to the questions and on the warrant for IDOT. There were things that she had to respond to, and I thought that she did. So I guess I'll just, okay, Tony's shaking his head yes, that she basically, go ahead, I was gonna say, Brent, why don't you answer his question more? I know enough to be dangerous.
Well, I know only a little bit more than you do, so that may make me more dangerous. So actually, Tony, do you know when EDI was able to provide the latest information out of that?
Yeah, the latest information that was requested was submitted last month. So obviously, it will take probably a couple months before we get a response.
And do we have an update while we're on IDOT and the traffic light, but also the other IDOT item that's in is the right in, right out access?
That information was submitted also. Obviously, we're waiting on an update with that too. There is no predicted turnaround time, usually a couple months.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you, Walter. Does anyone have any questions for Walter? No, look at that. Okay, and Pat is obviously out on vacation, so if you have any questions, please let him know. But I just want to make a comment on behalf of all of our first responders in Central that there was a tragic accident on New Year's Eve, and we send our prayers to the family and the woman's family who lost her life in that accident. I know our staff, our police officers, and the fire protection district did all they could to save her, and it's just a tragedy. So that happened here in Sugar Grove. So, okay, moving on to trustee reports. Trustee Bonnie.
Nothing to report. Nothing new.
Can I ask if there's any progress with the fire protection district and their training facility?
Last was our conversation we had with you and Brent to reach back out to Chief about some land.
Yeah.
That was the last I heard.
Okay. Brent, I know you lost the screen, but I think you still had your phone with you. Do you have any update on the conversation with Chief Perkins regarding their training facility?
No, I have not heard anything new from him, certainly for several weeks, given the holidays, so I don't have any update.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Trustee Walter.
Nothing to report, and nothing new from what
I was going to say, when is their next scheduled meeting? Do you know?
will be in January.
Mid-January. Okay. Cornwall mid-January update, hopefully they'll have a meeting, but they haven't had any since November?
Right.
Since November, okay. The community needs that kind of event to happen again, so here's to hoping that they can get their insurance figured out, and it can go off without a hitch, and their donations, to be honest. Trustee White? Nothing new, okay. Heidi?
Nothing new except for, Girl Scout cookies on sale for, in-person sales.
In-person sales, so we might see some Girl Scouts around the community doing door-to-door sales, so, keep your eyes out for those littles. Well, maybe not all littles, because your girls are still doing it, right?
My girls are still selling cookies.
Yes. Well, I know they're still selling cookies, but they're in high school and
They're in high school, yep.
Started
as kindergartners.
all the way through. That's good for
A lot
them.
of cookies.
That's a lot of
When are
cookies.
they gonna be out at the Jewel and stores and whatnot?
The booth sales start, after we get the initial orders in, which is usually at the week after,
Okay.
so you'll start seeing them coming in there. They also have online, so you can do online and have stores deliver them, or you can have it online and ship. So that you can have, the bill contact.
I'll probably text you this week or this weekend, trying to figure out how to do it, so I'm making sure supporting you guys.
I believe,
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Sean Karen has a new one.
He has his little
Well,
girl
we
is
go
too.
around.
She's got a daisy, so go hit the Shoma's house. There we go. Well, everybody likes a good cookie, so good. Hopefully they have successful sales this season. Trustee Shomas.
Yeah, nothing to report here. All the meetings with the schedules around the holidays were shifted. So, I think Park District is next week. Forest Reserve, I think, might be next week or the week thereafter, etc. So, I should have more to report there come the second week.
Okay. Walter, I did see your email sent to the steering committee, the comp plan steering committee. Has there been an update with a scheduled meeting?
The consultant is trying to get a consensus for either the 19th or 24th for the first steering committee meeting.
Of January?
Yes.
And is that a meeting that's open to the public, or is that?
No, it's just for the steering.
Just for the steering committee at this time? Okay, well, good. Let's hope that gets underway and everybody gets back and finalizes a date and get that started.
I do have a quick question.
Sure.
I've forgotten. There was an email a couple weeks ago that came out. I meant to bring it up at our last board meeting regarding the sale of the Calvary West church property there. Regarding trying to think of the context. I think it was just maybe it was an FYI that it was happening. I wasn't sure if there was an impact to any zoning or something else like that we should be aware of that's happening there. What sort of communication's gone to the bill? I'll tell you, as a former congregant, there's been nothing that's been communicated to us regarding what's going on. The church has been a little mum on that, unfortunately.
Well, all I can report is the property's for sale, and we've had conversations with the broker, what the use of the property could be. But beyond that, that's all I know.
Okay. What was communicated as far as what else the use of the property would be?
Well, it's the typical, what's the zoning, what can somebody do with the property? And just so everybody knows, the property is owned residential, and the church has special use permit to operate there. But the building is former Beta Graphics printing location, so it's really an industrial building, and the broker is marketing it. Well, they're not directly marketing it as industrial property, but they focus on the improvements to the property, which are industrial. And I made a note to the broker that it cannot be used for industrial purposes given the zoning.
Did we change the zoning on that?
No, the history is, when Meadow Ridge Villas came into the village back in the early 2000s, Beta Graphics was already established there, and Beta Graphics, as I understand it, became a proponent to the residential development along Route 56. And because I believe in the original master plan for Pressbury, the land along 56 was supposed to be industrial and office development land uses. And the Beta Graphics obviously saw the writing on the wall that with residents next to my industrial building, I'm going to have a problem. The then developer actually bought the property, bought Beta Graphics out. And so in the process of getting Meadow Ridge Villas entitled through the village, that developer made a deal with the church, occupied building, they got a special use permit, all the property was rezoned residential, and that's where we have ended up. And the problem is we have an industrial building that's not for sale, it can't be used for industrial purposes. Unless the property is rezoned, but I can't conjure up a good reason why it should be rezoned.
Yeah, I mean, unless you tie something into the other property that, maybe this conversation close to the meeting, I suppose, but there's another piece of property that's right next door to it. I don't know if somebody wants to go and do something bigger in there, but, I bring it up because people in the neighborhood know that that's where my wife and family were involved. What's going on? When you're on the village board, you shouldn't.
Right.
I don't, the church, like I said, the church has been pretty hush-hush with it. And most of the people who went there were, even though we knew it was going to be reopened, a lot of them still went back to the main church and were, to my understanding, we were all rather surprised when the for sale sign went up, maybe a little earlier than we had thought it was going to happen, but, whatever. I don't know, I think I'm not sure what the stomach for the residents that live around that for additional uses for that property would be. I think it would need to be a discussion, some larger discussions within the area community.
Well, if anybody that is interested in buying that property, they're going to go through the channels, they're going to contact the village, they're going to ask the village if this is something that would be acceptable, they'd have to go through the whole process. So that at that point is when we would be made aware of it, and we would be made aware of it. So, okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? I'm sorry. Trustee Shamus, anything else?
No.
Very good. Under President's Report.
Trustee Herron.
Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee Herron. Tell us about the school COVID numbers.
You can thank me later, Sean.
Did we lose it? Sean?
No, you didn't. I'm just dramatically hanging on. This whole humming waiting.
Wait your turn.
No, I don't have anything. I do have numbers that I can share. I don't have them ready, but I do have numbers breakdown between each school. I'm not prepared to share those.
I didn't look today, but I know yesterday they were reporting 141 students. I don't know what the student number is today. Did you see a report today? Okay. Ryan said it didn't come out yet. I'm more curious as to the staffing and whether you're noticing being in the one facility and communicating with other staffers. Is there a staffing problem foreseeable in the near future where our students would be able to go back to school? Is that even a discussion that's happening?
I believe that U46 is not going back to school either a week or until Martin Luther King Day. So some schools are. Cayman at this time is not planning on shutting down. Most schools didn't look too crazy as far as how many more students, but also the IDPH recommendations and CDC recommendations are not yet applying to schools. So where now if you test positive, you quarantine for 5 days and for the onset of symptoms, and then you're able to return to work fully masked. That is not applying to the schools at this time, but it's changed 3 times in the last. It changed Thursday, changed Friday, and it changed Saturday. So it's going to continue to change as we move forward. But I think to try and keep staff in.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. We appreciate it. Under President's Report, just a reminder that January 11th is the State of the Village. It'll be a presentation at the library. It will be recorded, so residents don't need to feel like they have to come out for it. It'll be recorded and they can view it at their leisure. Allison, is it 2 o'clock? 2 o'clock. Yeah. 2 o'clock on the 11th next week is the State of the Village. And then one other thing I just wanted to bring up, just because I was on an email chain looking for information with other municipalities regarding the gaming terminal fee. And as I did the math, maybe it's a non-issue, but currently we do not charge a terminal fee, but the fee has gone up from a $25 to $250 max. And whether the village board would like to implement a fee, we have 23 terminals, and at the max it would be $5,750 if we put the max terminal fee on the machines. Anyone?
I'm in favor of it.
All right, we got Trustee White's in favor of it. We got Trustee Bonnie.
I'd also like to look at the liquor license fees for liquor licenses that have been issued basically just to allow someone to have a terminal.
Do we have any of those? Liquor license, because the gas station, based on acreage, they don't have a core license. They qualify based on property size.
Oh.
So, Matt, is there anyone in the village that has a gaming machine through a liquor license that is?
Don't know that I would be the best to answer that question. I don't know all of the liquor licenses and states and all of that, so I don't know, and not that I'm aware of, but that's probably not going to answer that question.
Okay, that's fine. So let me just ask this then. So last year the board discounted all of our liquor license fees for their 2022 calendar year, not our budget year. For the calendar year of 2022 for those end users?
Budget year.
It was our budget year?
Yes, it
Runs May to May. So that's their liquor license also runs May to May. We discounted 50% to all liquor license holders. When we originally saw the list, the liquor license fees are all over the board. There's a lot of, they're everywhere. So if someone can just, because you're curious about it, if someone on staff can forward the fee structure back out to the board again to look through them, so you'll see. It's like, well, why does this have this fee and this fee? And everybody's on 2 different golf courses. One's a private, one's a public. Public has golf cart running a liquor license, so there's lots of different liquor store. The Jewel is different than the liquor store, and there's a lot of, it's not streamlined by any stretch.
Well, just when I was at the IML, one of the discussions was, the push X.
Yeah.
Which of course doesn't apply to us, but it made me realize, listening to the panel, the tremendous financial benefit that having the terminal is for not just the establishment, but for the operator. And I just thought, if we're providing that benefit through a liquor license, then that's something we ought to consider in our liquor license fee, whether it's an appropriate fee or whether it should go up.
Well, the one that would be, I think, most effective would be the new facility, because they're asking asking for specifically a pour license for that reason. Yeah. Can we, go ahead.
We do not currently have any of those, and we have had several inquiries about how do I get a liquor license so I can have gaming. And we have repeatedly told people, we don't know how to do that, how it works as well. Most of them are big companies where they have different communities that they're working with, and we've asked them to come back with a proposal that we can put before you. And so far, no one has done that. So we do get calls. We've had a few, this in 2021, but no one's really come back to say, here's how we're going to make it work. I think we just had one recently, so maybe they're still working on it. It was kind of early December or Thanksgiving, so that one might be coming. But we asked them to come with a proposal that we can take before the board for your consideration.
Okay.
I'm wondering if that's being interpreted by those companies as, well, you're making us do your job for you, whereas it could be very black and white. Here's the fee, it's going to be this, if it's not this, it's going to be that.
Well, no, I mean, we say we would take it to the board. We just, how do you work with it currently? What are you looking for? Okay. And then we can take that to the board. We're not giving you any hoops to go through. It's just, what are you familiar with? And then we can have the discussion about it.
Okay. We have certain types of liquor licenses.
Yeah.
There's a whole slew of different kinds of ways you can do a liquor license. And none of them in the village currently work that way. And I think that's what you're saying is that, if you've got an idea, if I'd like to see this done, be open to looking. Great.
My only thought on increasing the fees, we just sat here 4 or 6 weeks ago and had a discussion about surpluses in various, different accounts. And we've all gotten comments from the community about, feeling like people are getting nickel and dimes for certain things here and there. So I guess my point is let's have a dialogue about it. For sure. Let's do what's right by for the business owners, for the village. I think there's a place that we could meet in the middle. We're getting quite a bit of revenue out of these things already. 50, 200. You know what I mean? Is that just a pain in the butt for?
Let's do this. Matt, if you can hear any of this discussion, can we just bring this back for discussion? It'll take a little bit of legwork on a board report, but it doesn't need to be very lengthy. Pros and cons of doing it, and we can discuss it at the next meeting, and not just brought up in a president's report.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's a good place to start, though.
I'm sorry, say that?
Just a quick reference to what Trustee Lloyd was talking about with the IML and having a specific license for video gaming. Essentially, what they're saying is because there's such restriction on non-home rule and what the revenue you can get outside of just your percentage, is they're saying because non-home rule can create any liquor license fee that you would like, there's no limit. Then they create specific liquor licenses for video gaming that have a higher fee because outside of the percentage there, you can't really increase. Like a home rule can charge whatever they want for term. We cannot. So that's how they kind of combat that is I think what Trustee White was kind of getting at is the liquor licenses where they make the money rather than the terminal fee, because we have limits on it.
My question would be, I guess, as to what are, home rule cities doing and what are their fee structures on their gaming machines. I'd be very curious what that number looks like.
Okay, I can do some research and hopefully have some just to bring back as kind of a video gaming terminal versus liquor license maybe discussion. I can try to get as much information as I can for the next meeting.
If it has to get pushed to another one, it's not the end of the world. So if you're busy and there's other stuff on the agenda, I don't know what's coming, you can push it. It's not that, like I said,
okay.
Not precedent. Okay? Very good, everyone. We did it in reasonable time this evening, so Trustee,
motion to adjourn.
I got a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second? I'll get a second out of Trustee Shomas. First out of Trustee White. Roll call, please, Allison.
Trustee White?
Yes.
Trustee Shomas? Trustee Bonnie?
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee-
Aye.
Thank you. Trustee Walter.
Aye.
Trustee Lindy. Aye. Trustee Harris.
Aaron?
Yay.
All right, motion still passes, everyone. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.